And welcome everyone to another episode of Outside 50. I'm Wayne Kraska, and with me I have Rick Shaibani. How you going, Rick?
Not too bad, Kras. How about you?
Very good. And also our special guest today is Tom Ellis, the head coach of the USA Revolution. Hey, Tom.
Hey, fellas, how we doing?
Doing well, Tom? Yeah, good to have you on the podcast.
Nah, thanks. Like you guys are doing some great stuff. Love it.
Appreciate it.
Well, Tom, you and me go back a long way. We were just chatting just before we came on air, and I've been around since about 2001. You go back a couple of years before that. Tell us how you got into the club, and we all know that you were part of the Denver club for many, many years. Tell us how you got into that and the early years of the days in Denver.
Yeah, so I started in '99 was the first time I strapped up some boots. I called them cleats at that point. But yeah, I remember watching it back in the '80s, back when I was playing American football in high school. In between two-a-days, we'd pull up and watch some AFL and ESPN back when there wasn't a lot on ESPN. And then later on in the late '99, my brother was playing with Matt Danowski, was starting a club up here in town, and we'd played some softball with him. And they said, you got to come out and try it. So I did. And after one tournament in Kansas City, I was hooked. So I've been playing ever since.
That's what they say. It only takes one game, and that just pulls everyone in. So what happened then was a lot longer than a dynasty of Denver success. You had a string of eight Div1 premierships
Yeah,
in a row?
we won 8. Well, we had one stretch in there where we went 4 in a row. But yeah, overall we've had 8. So I think the last time we won was in 11. So it's been a bit of a stretch. But yeah, we were lucky. We had a good core group of Americans and Australians that came together, and which I played about 100 and I don't know 140 something games for Denver, and I think I only played like 20 at home. So it was a lot of traveling, and it was a lot of fun. It was a really good stretch of about 10 years where I was really involved playing, and then after that I started coaching.
Yeah, all that travel, that's the reality for all the teams that are in the Midwest or the Mountain West part of the country. And it's funny that you mention that you first heard about footy back in the '80s on ESPN, because I've had a bunch of people come up to me over the years, sometimes like friends of dad or dads of friends, and who were around back then. They were like, "Oh yeah, AFL, VFL, I remember that. Wish ESPN would bring it back. That'd be awesome." So it's funny to always hear those stories because, yeah, hopefully they do bring it back someday. Fingers crossed.
Well, they've got darts on TV. I'm pretty sure we should be able to get some AFL on.
Hopefully.
And Tom, you've been involved with the Revos, obviously, as a player. You've been on a few tours internationally with the Revos?
Yeah, so I started playing with the Revolution in 2000. That was the first time an All-American Revolution team went and played against Canada. We were up in Toronto, beat them up there. But yeah, so I played on that USA team for 5 years. I coached them in '06. We played a game in LA, and I got to coach them there. And then I took over the reins back in 2015.
Right, so you had a little bit of a time away from the team between '06 and 15. What had changed in that time?
We definitely had a lot more players playing around the league. I mean, we definitely grew some in that point. A lot of young kids coming out of colleges. You saw a lot more guys that had gone to play in Australia and then came back and were playing. Your Tigers and some of the Minnesota. That whole core of Minnesota guys. So that was one thing that had changed quite a bit, and that was good to see.
And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but this will be your second go round at the IC as a coach, right?
Yes, I played twice as a player in 2002 and 2005. I'm happy to say we were the first team to beat Ireland in international play. So we got them their first loss in '05. And then I took them at the last cup in 17. We finished fourth. And this will be my second go as coach.
Nice.
We'll move on to the IC Cup a little later. But first up, you have a camp coming up down in Houston at the end of the month. Can you tell us what we're expecting to do there?
Yeah, yeah, we do. We've got a group of guys that we've already named to the club that's going to be in Australia, which they've moved up to Queensland. So we've got that set of guys, and then we've got another set that I'm going to pick the next 8 players that we've got to get. So that's what we're doing at this camp, is kind of narrowing it down. This year is something a little bit different that's we're dealing with, which is fantastic. Is we've got a core group of guys that are playing in Australia. So this is going to be the first time that we're going to have guys that are just going to come up to Queensland and help us play. Some of the teams that we've always competed against, your Ireland's, your New Zealand and PNG, the ones that have won the cup, they always have guys living in Australia playing. We've never really had a big group like that. We've had 1 or 2 guys in the past that have been like that. But this is going to be the first time that we could possibly have 6 to 8 players that are living in Australia.
Yeah, I'm actually good friends with Max DePina and a few of the other Revo guys who are in Australia right now. I actually had a kick with a few of those guys when I was playing down in Australia myself this past year at Caroline Springs in Melbourne. So with these 8 players, are they going to be like bench players or potential injury replacements in Australia for the IC, or are they going to be used for future Revo tournaments?
Now, these will be the final 8 players that we'll put on the list. We're allowed 28 players on the list, and then you get 2 emergencies that you can put on that can come on. So you actually take a list of 30, but those last 8 are going to be the guys, and then you can only suit up 24 during the games. So that's what those last 8 will encompass: the 4 on the bench and the 4 behind.
Right.
So the camp down in Houston is going to be a lot of match play, I'm presuming, because there's no other way for you to make that assessment in that shorter time.
Yeah, it's going to be a competition. Yeah, it's going to be a competition for these guys. Some of these rucks that are going for the last spot will compete against each other. Midfielders will be competing against each other, and we'll see who's the better ones are.
Okay, then after the camp, you'll name the squad, I presume, and what follow-up will you be having between then and I presume all these players, or the American-based players, will be playing in the regional championships in June and July?
Yeah, so at that point, we'll have a fitness program we put them on. Some of the guys in Australia, obviously, if they're playing weekly, I won't really worry about them. But for Americans that their games are sporadic, we'll put them on a little bit of a tighter regiment. And then we'll definitely take looks at them that we'll see them at regionals and try to get some feedback from their coaches during the season. But that'll be really the last time we see them until we get together and go to Australia.
Yeah, well, you got regionals there in Denver, which is quite handy this year. The Western regionals are in Denver, so you'll get to see all the West Coast players there, I would presume. And would you be traveling over there to Dallas to the Central regionals as well?
Yeah, I'll try to get to the Centrals and Easterns and all that stuff. I'll try to get to those for sure. And if I can't make it, depending on schedules, um, some of the other coaches will too. Like Dustin Jones is now helping us coach. Kyle Strinsky's the coach. Um, Obviously, Dan Sarbacher and Jason will be coaching. So some of those guys might show up at those as well.
And Tom, kind of switching gears a little bit here. You guys are as the Revos. You guys are also going to be touring Croatia in the near future, correct?
That is true. At the end of April, Kyle Strinsky's taking a group over to Croatia. It's a small trip, or a short trip, I should say. They're going to play a kind of a game on Friday as a warm up, maybe like nines or something like that, just to get everybody's legs from the flight, and then they'll play a big game on Sunday. And Kyle Strinsky will take that whole group. and he'll run all that. So that'll be like guys that aren't going to the Cup.
Right.
We still have a lot of good players, so we want to keep developing them as we go.
And that's really big, not just for the trip and the exposure, but I know footy has really been growing in Croatia quite a bit. I think it was last I see was their first, so I'm sure they'll be bringing a really good crew.
Well, they won the Division Two at the last Cup, so they were the Division Two champions.
Wow.
So they definitely have some players.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Tom, let's talk about some of the players that you have or playing down in Australia right now. Are they all based in Melbourne?
Yeah, all but one at this point. We've got Aaron. I don't want to butcher his last name, but he is out in Perth, and so we've got he's on the list, and then we've got other guys on the list. Is Buddy Spawn, who's was on our Cup last time, great player.
Where's Buddy playing?
He's down in Melbourne.
Yeah, he was at Black Rock, which was my old club, and then I think he moved to Mordialloc.
Yep.
Yeah, former OC player.
I think he's going to go back to Black Rock. I'm not really sure at this moment. There's some stuff in the air with that. And then you've got Max, who's down there playing, obviously. You got David Strepo, who's down there playing. And then there's a few more that are on the list that we're trying to decide if they're going to make the squad or not. So there's some news that might come out later. We'll see if they make it or not. But it's going to be very interesting to have all those players in Melbourne. The tough thing is now they got to go up to Queensland. So, some of those guys can't come to the Cup because now they're going to have to take that time, to the camp because they have to take that time out to go to the Cup. So,
right.
Our camp is a little different than what it normally would be.
Yeah. And the Australian-based players, when we asked this question of Christina Licata the other night, there are some new rules in place for the IC for Australian-based players when they're either considered maybe semi-residents. How do we work out? And Christina had mentioned that there's actually two sets of rules depending on how long they're there.
Yeah, and for us, all our guys are okay. They haven't been over long enough where it's going to affect us. But there is a limit of how many players you can have, and I think it's 8. I think it was 12, and they've dropped that down. And this will be the first time we've ever actually had to look at the count, which is awesome.
Yeah, it certainly shows the improvement of US footy when we have players down there. And what I've seen, players playing in senior teams around Melbourne, not as in senior as in old, but as in the firsts, as a lot of teams have first, seconds, and thirds. And have that experience is going to be a huge advantage this year. And certainly I know from some of the other countries as well, they're in a similar sort of boat. I'm sure there's plenty of Irish players playing down there as well. And I guess there's a few Canadians there too.
Yeah, it's never been an issue with Ireland and New Zealand and PNG. They always have players over there playing at a pretty good level. So that's always been something they've been able to do. But this is the first time we'll have that, and it just shows you the dedication that these guys are doing to go down there. I mean, these guys are changing their life to go down there because of footy. So I mean, that's a big thing for us.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously from my end here in LA, we've got D-Rock, Donald Lee, Sam Murphy, Gabriel Martin Del Campo, and of course both Sam and Gabe played in Oz 2 seasons ago, and they've been able to consistently be in the Revo side since then. So that's really big. I know both of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but both of them were on the Ireland tour, right?
Yeah, along with Ryan McGettigan. They all came out, and they were all stars on that trip to Ireland.
And Bill McGovern as well.
And
right?
Bill also, yep. He didn't make this list, but Gabe's a great example. Gabe was a good player, went down to Australia for a year, came back as a great player.
Oh,
Gabe
definitely.
is one of the most improved I've ever seen. So
yeah, he just won a Best and Fairest award at the Dragons last year. So
yeah, he did well.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier in an earlier podcast, I actually saw Gabe play at Black Rock I think it was 2 years ago, and he was doing great. He was running around the midfield, and Black Rock, probably not one of the strongest competitions in Melbourne, but fairly decent, and I've been following him, and we've been catching up ever since. BlackRock being one of my old teams that I played for back in the day. So, Tom, let's move on to the location up in on the Sunshine Coast. I would have had thought that being quite warm, it might have suited a lot of the US players coming off a summer here and being used to playing in summer conditions because it could possibly be quite humid, not necessarily really warm, but certainly different conditions to having played in the winter of Melbourne in the last couple of ICs.
Yeah, ever since, I mean, it's always been in Melbourne, so it's always been cold. We've had some wet games, but being up in Queensland, they're telling me I can probably pack some shorts this time, so that'll be nice. Probably going to have some rain, I would think, at some point, but we'll see. But I think the move up there is going to be interesting. They've got a facility. It looks like it's a lot like our nationals, so there's going to be a lot of fields all together in one spot. So for us, we're kind of used to that. And I think the bigger fields that we play on gives us an advantage. So I would love to see us play on some real big fields.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be huge, not just for international footy, but for footy in Queensland, because that's a brand new complex. And like you were saying, it's very similar to what American teams are kind of used to playing on at regionals and nationals. So there you go.
Yeah, I believe that Richmond Football Club have used that facility already and may have used it even last year for pre-season at various times. So it must be quality, and I'm sure the fields will be pretty hard and ready to go. A lot different to the soft grounds that you would find around suburban Melbourne that you might have played out in Royal Park too, Tom.
Yeah, some of those fields were real small too. I mean, we played at some pretty tiny fields in Australia, down in Melbourne. So I'm looking forward to really opening it up and let these guys run.
There you go.
Well, speaking of running, what are some of the training requirements of your squad at the moment? What is the volume of running they've been expected? Maybe the midfielders are doing at the moment. Is there a set program, or you just tracking what they do?
Now there is a set program that basically they've been doing a load, just getting ready for camp this early in the season. So they've just been doing a lot of fartlek kind of running styles, some 400s, things like that, but just getting a lot more load on the legs. And then after camp, we're actually going to use a program that's going to have hot monitors and all that stuff that's really going to concentrate on recovery. So we'll get a little more scientific on this round. And if you look at our last cup, the guys were pretty fit. We had, I would think, the fittest team out there when it came to the fitness level, and our guys could run all day, and we'll plan on doing that again.
Sure. Sure. Well, it's going to be a big year all around the country for football, but certainly for everyone who's travelling down for the International Cup with the Revos and the Freedom. There's obviously games coming up and camps coming up, and then regionals, and then the tour down there, and then we finish the season with the national championships over there in California. I don't think anyone's going to be lacking for footy this season, especially the guys that are in that group. They're certainly going to get their opportunities to get on the park as opposed to playing a handful of games. So talking about your assistants, you've obviously got very similar assistant coaches to what you've had in the past. How big is your support group? Are you taking trainers and physios and things like that with you as well?
So on the management side of it, we've got Brad Anderson will be back with us again. And then there might be some more people that will add to the list as we get going now that we know that it's going to be in Queensland. We definitely have some people out that want to help that are part of the USAFL. So we're kind of putting all that together now. But we should have a pretty good set schedule once we get out there with a lot of different options other than just playing the games. We've got some clubs that we're going to go visit and things like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, as Rick mentioned, how the community gets involved in the tournament down there, having a whole bunch of international teams. And I know the teams have done certainly school visits and things like that, and got involved in local community projects and over the years. But up there in Queensland, without the maybe massive following that footy has down in Melbourne, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what the participation level of the community is when we get down there. So it's certainly going to be interesting. Hopefully one of us might be able to get down there. What do you reckon, Rick?
Maybe. We'll see what happens.
We'll see if our wages will pay our way. What do you reckon?
Yes, yes. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a really good tournament. I think it's going to set up really well. I think from the feedback I've gotten so far from some of the local clubs, I think it's going to be pretty good. I think we're going to have a really good turnout.
Yeah, I agree. And like you were saying, Tom, I think the weather is definitely going to be a big factor. Like, not everyone in the US obviously is playing in summer temperatures year round, but Queensland's going to be pretty mild. Hopefully, the rain holds off. And you'd think that a lot of the other like tropical teams, like your PNGs, your Fijis, Nauru, maybe would do really well in that environment. But I reckon the US is going to have some tricks up their sleeve. So best of luck.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those teams are all going to be used to playing in that kind of weather. That is for sure. That was one of the reasons that we went to Houston this year in February, was kind of trying to get a Melbourne-ish feel, but I think we'll be okay still with now that they moved it up to Queensland.
There you
Houston
go.
Houston never gets that bad. So
Sure. Well, that sounds good. So the final squad, Tom, is 28 and 2 emergencies. How have we gone? Are the players doing any fundraising for that, or it's all self-funded? And what is sort of support have you got from the USAFL in regards to helping players get across there? Is there any support involved in that?
yeah, USAFL always helps. We always get a grant from them. It's always pretty much the same. That'll help pay for some of the cars and things like that. But everything else is self-funded. And we are going to launch some fundraisers after the camp once we get who we know is going and all that stuff. But there'll be some fundraisers. They'll also do some of their own fundraisers. Each player's going to, you got to buy your own flight, and then you got to pay for your hotels and food and all that while you're out there. Usually this is like a $4,000 to $5,000 investment for a player when it's all said and done. Plus, you're using 2 weeks of your own vacation. So it's quite the investment. So these guys that want to go and play, it's a lot to ask, but these guys all keep coming back, so it's good.
That's great, Tom, and we really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you this week. And along with Christine Licata, we wish you luck. And if there is anything that we can do to broadcast some more news, or you want to talk about something that the Revos have got planned, we'd certainly be willing to put you on again. And we'll certainly try and catch up with you after you come back.
Absolutely.
And one last thing, Tom, just so our audience knows, you can find the Revos on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, yes?
Not Twitter yet, but we will get back up on that. But Facebook and Instagram, yes.
And it's just USA Revolution, right?
USA Revolution, correct.
Great.
And I think there's a link through Facebook through USAFL also.
Cool.
But yeah, we'd love to come back. I think maybe do some talk right after I announce the team. Maybe we could do something about after that. Come back and talk about the players themselves. And
sure.
One of the great things that if you see the list that we've got so far, it's spread out all across the country. We've got players from a lot of different teams, and that's exciting to me because as we get going, this year we've got Croatia, which has never happened. We're going to go over to Croatia. Next year we're going to Europe. You're going to have a group that's going to go over and play against Great Britain for a whole week that they're going to be out there. We're talking about in 2022 doing a group in Hawaii that we're going to send a team to Hawaii that we're hoping to get an Australian team, maybe a New Zealand, maybe a PNG to come to Hawaii and play. So there's a lot of stuff that we've got going, and be able to do this, we got to have players and all these players across the country, they get excited, they go and talk to their teammates. And, ideally we want to have, 2 or 3 of our group traveling all the time playing games. That's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, we heard just recently there's a game this coming weekend in Hawaii, Calgary, traveling down to Hawaii. So that's fantastic to be able to have that opportunity to go out there and have a kick. So I'm envious of some of the Western region clubs to be able to travel over to Hawaii for a weekend. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can start tying that in too with some of the teams in Australia or, like I said, New Zealand, PNG, whoever, Samoa, whoever you can get over there would be fantastic.
All right, Tom, we'll let you go. Like I said, we appreciate the time for you to come on. I expect we're looking for a better finish place than fourth this coming year. What are your thoughts and what are you talking to your players about as we on the lead up?
Yeah, we made a big step improvement last time from the Cup in 2014. We made a big step up. I think we finished 8th, and then we came up into 4th. And these guys really took on the fitness level. Everything we asked them to do, they did, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We've got a core group of guys that know what to expect. When we get done with camp, we will push all the way up into the Cup. Weekly meetings and fitness levels and skill work and all that kind of stuff. So I think that we're going to take a big step forward again this year.
Hope so. Yeah. Best of luck.
We all hope so. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks, Tom.
Absolutely.
Outside 50 is brought to you with the help of Play Aussie USA. Play Aussie is the only place in the USA you can buy the famous Sharon football, a proud sponsor of the USAFL. Visit them at playaussie.com.